Barry. We're going to earn it for the next 2 live hours of SportsCenter. This is Matt. I'm Sage Steele. Here today, again, 2 hours, big day of NFL coverage as we'll cool as a cucumber. Matt Barry, Sage Steele, 2 live hours of SportsCenter coming away right now. Stephen A's coming back on the long-term. Welcome to SportsCenter, everybody. Sage Steele alongside Matt Barry, who officially has not stopped smoking.
Welcome back to another conversation. This episode of Conversations with Drew is probably my favorite one to date, even though it's only the third episode. This one is my favorite because of the person it's about, the person this conversation is about, because of why I wanted to have this conversation. I grew up watching ESPN, watching SportsCenter, because when I was growing up, when I was a kid, and I still am to these days, I'm a big sports fan. That's basically what I lived my life around, was sports, watching whether it was baseball, football, hockey, basketball, you name it. I watched sports and I wanted to play sports. That's what I wanted to do with my life, was be a professional athlete. My dreams never worked out. However, I did play sports. I participated in sports. I played football in high school. I played basketball in high school. I played baseball in Little League. I played hockey. I went to hockey camps. I went to baseball camps. I did things growing up involved in sports. So doing this episode and covering this episode and this person, not just because of what she did, but because of also the person she is, and we can all take a page out of her book. And that leads me into the person that this conversation is about, and that person is the one and only Sage Steele, who is a former ESPN SportsCenter anchor. Don't know if you heard about the controversy, but she made comments back in 2020, 2021 about several different issues, and ESPN then took her off the air in 2021. She had a lawsuit, filed a lawsuit, and that's in the past. Some of the things that she had said, she called out vaccine mandates, called out female sports reporters, saying that they need to be more responsible, that it's not just on athletes and coaches to act a certain way. And then she made a comment about Obama and him identifying as black on the census when he was raised by his white mom and his grandma, and his black father was nowhere in sight. All those comments, you're free to make those comments. You're free to make any comments you want, because in America we have the freedom of speech. We have the right to free speech. So we have the right to say things without being censored. She didn't say those things on air. And that's the issue at hand, is that you're going after somebody who's been at your network. She's been at ESPN since 2007. So she's been there a long time. And like I said, growing up, I watched ESPN, I watched SportsCenter. So growing up, I watched Sage Steele on ESPN. I've watched her on SportsCenter. And so you grow up with this person and you're like, oh my gosh, where'd she go? So 2021, turn on, nor to be seen. So you can agree or disagree with her comments, but what you can't agree with is what ESPN did by taking her off the air and censoring her, and basically saying that you can't say these things if you're employed with this company, is basically what ESPN was saying. And I may agree with some things she said, which will probably get me banned on certain platforms. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm not afraid to say that I agree with a lot of the things that she has said. And I agree with a lot of the things she is saying now, and a lot of the things she is doing now. I think we can all take a page out of her book and speak up against things that are done, things that are wrong, that companies have done to us, especially like what she did with ESPN when she filed the lawsuit. And she ended up winning that lawsuit, and I think it's amazing that she would go and fight and say, hey, this isn't right. The lawsuit was based off of the fact that they violated her right to free speech, and they retaliated against her. And I couldn't agree more that those are the things that happened. And I think that absolutely she had every right to file a lawsuit against ESPN for what they did, because you can't put everybody into a box and expect everybody to think the same way. You just can't. And it gets even more personal for me because I previously had a job and lost that job. Still don't know the reason behind why I lost the job, but based on my knowledge behind it, I believe it was purely because of things I said that were political in nature. So, one, it violates my right to free speech, and two, it was retaliation. So that's how I feel based on my circumstances, and I can take a page out of her book. And so, without going too much into depth, um, I am pursuing a lawsuit against this former employer. Um, I may update that in a future conversation, but I want to stick on topic in this episode being about Sage Steele and um, what happened with ESPN and what's going on with her now. I follow her on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all those big things. Obviously, because you follow people that, or you follow celebrities like Facebook. When Facebook was first coming out, you go to your favorite athlete's page, whether it was Carmelo Anthony, whether it was Dirk Nowitzki, whether it was Allen Iverson or Kobe Bryant. You'd go to their page and you'd click follow or like, and you'd follow their page and you'd see all the pictures they put up and their status is like, oh, game time in 10 minutes, catch me at the arena or whatever. And nowadays it's Instagram is the popular one, or Twitter. And you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, and you see them posting pictures of them in their drip, as they say nowadays, or you see a picture of them with some motivational quote of with them like practicing for the game or getting warmed up or on the field, or in their uniform after the game, and some motivational quote that says, "Hey, I just lost this game, but keep my head held high," things like that. So we go and follow celebrities. So obviously, with her being on ESPN and SportsCenter, I wanted to follow her because she was one of those main anchors that was on there that you would go and you'd be, Sage Steele, Sage Steele. So followed her on those accounts, and then especially after this thing with ESPN was settled and she came out and everything, got more of her story from her side of everything, and just listening to her come out and say what her side is and everything else, it painted a more perfect picture of what happened and why she said what she said, and you can understand why she said what she said, and I couldn't agree more with her, and you go, oh, I didn't even know that. Like I said, you can't judge a book by a cover. However, knowing her family's history, her dad served in the Army, you could guess that she leans more conservative than other people at ESPN. And so I just gotta applaud her for what she did. Applaud her. She did apologize for the comments, but obviously in the time we're going through at that period, everything was tense. I think she handled that very well, apologizing. I would have done the same thing given the situation. And going forward, now you see her fighting for female athletes. Obviously, trying to keep men out of women's sport, biological men out of women's sports. She met with Tommy Tuberville. She even had this very interesting meeting with Trump that she had talked about, and how she met Trump and talked with him, and the talk turned into stuff about sports and football, and wasn't a lot about politics, which obviously knowing him, you see him, he obviously went on Twitter and tweeted, shut up and dribble. So obviously, he watches sports, and he probably is a fan of LeBron James. You never know. But hearing the stories and everything, like, it's just another one of those stories where everybody's like, oh, I got to meet Trump, and super cool dude. And so honestly, the things she's done and the things she's doing now I think what she's doing now, she's being a voice for the voiceless, which is needed in today's society, because a lot of people are afraid to speak up because they believe that they'll be shunned, or they believe that they'll be muted and censored and they can't talk, or they'll be disciplined for saying something that doesn't fall in line with what the company they're at or whatever their situation is. They just don't believe that they can speak up about things. And having somebody like Sage Steele that can come out and say things and speak up for those who can't, I think it's also amazing. And I got to applaud her for that. I think this conversation I had to have this conversation. I had to do this episode because of the fact that it was on in my household and she was on the Sports Center, and you'd watch it, you'd turn it on, and obviously watching it, you're like, wow, she's really good at what she does. She's even better, and she's very professional too. She's very professional. I saw her on the John Chris podcast. I thought that was a very entertaining episode of that podcast. The things they talked about, you have to watch that podcast, by the way. And now she's doing a podcast of her own too, and I think it's amazing seeing someone basically say, I'm not going to let this little speed bump affect what I want to do in my life and the message I want to put out. And she's putting out the message that she wants to put out without anybody saying, no, you can't do that. And I think that's awesome. I think a lot of people need to take a page out of her book, like I said earlier and multiple times in this episode. I think we could all take a page out of her book and follow in her footsteps. If you're not happy with your situation, change it if you can and move forward, and don't let people stop your right to free speech. You can say things without others telling you can't. You have the right to free speech. It's the First Amendment. It is the First Amendment. Don't be afraid to say things. Don't be afraid to believe things. If you believe that Trump is the best president, if you believe he's the right man for the job, then say it. If you think Joe Biden sucks, then say it. And if your work comes after you and your work disciplines you or retaliates against you for saying something like that because they think Trump is not good and they think Biden is the king, sue them. Sue them. I don't care. I think we all need to take a page out of her book and do what she did when it came to that whole lawsuit and fighting for people and fighting for good causes, such as keeping biological men out of women's sports. We can't, that it's basically saying that we don't care about women now, because what was the whole fight with USA Soccer? That women should be paid equally or all that stuff. So we can pay women equally, but now women can't even participate in their sports because we're allowing transgender men into women's sport, or transgenders into women's sports. So men who are transitioning to women are now being allowed to participate in women's sports, taking away the ability for these women to earn the equal pay as men. So to me, it kind of interrupts that theory. So seeing people fight for women is awesome to see. It's refreshing to see a lot of these people that you rooted for, that you watched, that you looked up to, as someone that you can, or someone that you would want to meet and shake hands with and sit down and have an actual face-to-face conversation with. I'd love to do that one day. I think that'd be amazing. I think it'd be awesome. I think that we could talk about a lot of sports together. I'd love to hear her stories of her dad's days in the Army. I think that's awesome, and I thank him for his service. I think anybody who serves in the Army or any branch of the military, they automatically have my respect because they did something. They sacrificed their own time, their own life to go and protect us, to go and serve, to go and fight for our right to free speech. Another thing that she talks about a lot is she's very proud to be biracial. And if you know her story, then you would know that her mom is white, her dad is black. And I think that's awesome that she's championing that, because nowadays, a lot of people are either black or white. There's no in between. So you either have to choose that you're black or white. And I think that what she's doing by saying, I'm proud to be biracial, I think that's awesome too, because she's saying that you can't choose one or the other. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can be both, and you can be proud of it. And I think that the message that sends and the message that reverberates is that whether you're Asian and American, or whether you're a mix of whatever race, you can be proud of being both. You don't just have to choose one or the other because the media is telling you, or because everybody else is telling you. So please, 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 if you could, give a round of applause to this awesome person. Please go support her. Please go listen to her tell her side of the story, because I think it's important. The message needs to get out there. And to Sage, if you listen to this podcast, if you listen to this episode, I thank you for what you've done, the courage that you've shown by speaking up and speaking out about different topics, and being the person that you are is amazing. Here's another little interesting fact. I don't know if you guys know, but me being a Ravens fan, I think this is really cool. Her brother is works for the Ravens in PR. If you've seen the Super Bowls, you'll usually see him with the MVP of the game afterwards. Had a chance to meet him a few times, having worked at the Ravens Stadium doing security there. I think he's also, you can tell that that family was a real solid family, and that's something a lot of us should hold tight and should hold near, is family, because family is everything. And to close out this conversation, like I said, Sage, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for your message, and I look forward to seeing where you go and seeing you fight for everything that you're fighting for. I think it's amazing, and if anyone can do it, you can do it. And I know that because you remind me a lot of my mother and the person she was. And I know that her strength, and seeing you and you sharing similar strengths and everything, and similar abilities and similar mindset, you're the person that can take this and run with it and show us all how to do things the right way and how to fight for things. So thank you for your courage, and God bless. That'll do it for this conversation. We'll see you on the next episode.